The 1990s gave us sci-fi that dared to think beyond explosions and spectacle, films that questioned reality, challenged identity, predicted futures we are only beginning to understand today. Yet many of these brilliant stories were buried under bigger releases and louder blockbusters, forgotten not because they failed, but because they were too early, too bold, too different. Tonight we uncover 10 sci-fi films the world ignored, and once you see them, you will wonder how they were ever forgotten. Number 10, Split Second, 1992. A flooded future London, endless rain, streets that feel less like a city and more like a slow, drowning grave. This is not just atmosphere, it is a warning. And inside this decay walks a detective who feels just as broken as the world around him. Split Second does something most 90s sci-fi never dared. It refuses to be clean. It refuses to be safe. Instead, it drags you into a filthy cyberpunk nightmare where corporate power has already won and humanity is just trying to survive the aftermath. The film mixes hard-boiled detective energy with creature horror in a way that feels chaotic, yet strangely controlled. Rutger Hauer delivers a performance that feels like he has already lost everything long before the story begins. That is the key. This is not a hero story. This is a man hunting something he barely understands while being hunted by his own trauma. The monster itself is almost secondary. The real tension comes from the world closing in. What makes this film unforgettable is how confident it is in its tone. Neon reflections ripple across waterlogged streets. Guns feel heavy. Silence feels dangerous. It looks and feels like a bigger film trapped inside a smaller budget. And yet almost no one talks about it today. Overshadowed by cleaner, futuristic films. Ignored because it was too messy, too strange, too unapologetic. But here's the truth. This is what cyberpunk actually feels like when the future stops pretending to be exciting. Number 9, Timescape, 1992. Imagine knowing the future is about to break your life apart. Imagine having the chance to stop it. Now imagine realizing that changing one moment could destroy something even more important. Timescape does not scream for attention. It does something far more dangerous. It whispers. While other sci-fi films chase explosions and spectacle, this one builds tension slowly through emotion and inevitability. Jeff Daniels plays a man who stumbles into a secret that should never exist. Travelers from the future quietly observing disasters without stopping them, watching history unfold like it is already written. The concept alone is terrifying, not because of what it shows, because of what it refuses to change. The film leans into something rare for the genre. Consequences. Every decision feels heavy. Every attempt to fix the future creates a deeper sense of dread. There are no easy victories here, only choices that come with a cost. What truly elevates this film is its emotional core. At the center is not technology, not spectacle, but family, loss, redemption, the fear of failing the people who matter most. It grounds the science in something painfully human. And that is exactly why it was forgotten. It was too quiet in a decade that rewarded noise, too thoughtful in a market-chasing action. But if you pay attention, you realize something unsettling. This film did not fail. We just stopped listening. Number 8, Fortress, 1993. What if prison was no longer a place you could escape? What if it lived inside your body, watching every move, controlling every thought, waiting for the moment you break? Fortress takes a familiar concept and pushes it into something far more disturbing. This is not just another prison break story. This is a future where punishment has evolved into total domination. Cameras are not enough anymore. Walls are not enough anymore. Control has become internal. Christopher Lambert plays a man thrown into a high-tech facility designed to erase individuality. Inside this system, inmates are monitored through implanted devices that can inflict pain at any second. Privacy does not exist. Freedom is not even a memory. It is a concept that has already been erased. The brilliance of this film lies in how grounded it feels. The technology does not feel impossible. It feels inevitable. That is what makes it unsettling. The prison becomes a symbol of a world that has decided control is more important than humanity. Action exists, but it is never the focus. The real tension comes from the psychological pressure, the constant awareness that escape is not just difficult, It may be impossible. Every plan feels like a gamble against a system that already knows your next move. And yet, despite its ideas, this film faded into the background, overshadowed by louder releases, ignored because it did not fit neatly into action or drama. But look closer and you will see something chilling. This was never just science fiction. It was a blueprint. Number 7, Strange Days, 1995. What if you could relive someone else's memories? Not watch them, not imagine them, actually feel them. Every heartbeat, every fear, every forbidden moment. Strange Days builds its entire world around that idea and then asks a question most films avoid. What happens when people stop living their own lives and become addicted to someone else's reality? Set on the edge of a new millennium, the film follows a black market dealer selling recorded experiences. Pleasure, violence, terror, nothing is off limits. The technology is seductive, but beneath it lies something darker, a society losing its grip on what is real. Ralph Fiennes delivers a performance filled with desperation. He is not in control. He is barely surviving. That is what makes the story work. This is not a hero navigating the future. This is a man drowning in it. Directed with raw intensity, the film captures a world on the verge of collapse. Streets feel alive with tension. Every interaction carries weight. The line between observer and participant begins to disappear. What makes this film remarkable is how far ahead it was. Long before social media, long before virtual reality became mainstream, it understood something fundamental. People do not just want to escape reality, they want to replace it. And yet, when it released, it struggled. Too dark, too intense, too honest for audiences expecting simple entertainment. But now it feels different. Now it feels familiar. And that is what makes it unforgettable. Number 6, Screamers, 1995. War has changed. Not louder, not bigger, just smarter. Machines no longer wait for commands. They learn, they adapt, and then they decide who deserves to live. Screamers drops you into a frozen battlefield where two human factions are already exhausted. But the real threat is something neither side can control anymore. Autonomous weapons designed to hunt have evolved beyond their programming. They no longer recognize sides. They recognize survival. Peter Weller plays a soldier who slowly realizes that the enemy is not across the battlefield. It is everywhere, beneath the ground, inside the silence, waiting. The tension does not come from explosions. It comes from uncertainty. Every step feels dangerous. Every encounter feels like a trap. What makes this film brilliant is how it builds paranoia. The machines are not just killers. They are imitators. They blend, they deceive, and that changes everything. Trust disappears. Alliances become fragile. The line between human and machine begins to collapse. The ideas here feel far ahead of their time. Self-learning AI, endless war driven by automation, technology that no longer answers to its creators. These are not background concepts. They are the core of the horror. Yet the film never received the attention it deserved. Limited budget, quiet release, overshadowed by bigger names and louder spectacles. But watch it now and something becomes clear. This was not just a sci-fi story. It was a warning about a future that is no longer far away. Number 5, The Arrival, 1996. Sometimes the truth is not hidden. It is ignored, buried under noise, dismissed as paranoia, until one day it becomes impossible to deny. The Arrival follows a radio astronomer who stumbles onto something that should not exist. Signals that suggest we are not alone. But instead of discovery leading to wonder, it leads to fear. Because what he uncovers is not a message, it is a plan already in motion. Charlie Sheen plays a man who begins as a skeptic, grounded, rational. But as the evidence builds, he is forced into a reality that no one around him is willing to accept. That is where the film finds its strength. Not in spectacle, but in isolation. The conspiracy unfolds slowly. Pieces fall into place one by one. Climate manipulation, hidden infrastructure, a silent takeover that does not rely on invasion. It relies on invisibility. That is what makes it terrifying. The idea that the world could already be changing without anyone noticing. The film captures the feeling of being alone with the truth, of watching everything unravel while everyone else continues as if nothing is wrong. It is a quiet kind of horror, one that builds through realization rather than shock. When it released, it struggled to stand out. Compared to louder alien invasion films, it felt restrained, less explosive, more unsettling. Now that restraint feels like its greatest strength, because the scariest invasions are not the ones that arrive. They are the ones that were already here. Number 4, Cube, 1997. There is no explanation, no backstory, no comfort. Just a room, then another, each one waiting to punish a single mistake. Cube strips science fiction down to its most brutal core. A group of strangers wake up inside a massive structure filled with deadly traps. No one knows who built it. No one knows why they are there. And the deeper they go, the less those answers seem to matter. What makes this film extraordinary is its simplicity. No massive effects, no sweeping landscapes, just cold metal walls and human fear. Yet it creates tension that most big-budget films fail to achieve. Every movement feels calculated. Every decision feels like life or death. The cube itself becomes more than a setting. It becomes a system, a machine that reflects the people trapped inside it. As alliances form and collapse, the real danger shifts from the traps to the humans trying to survive them. Logic clashes with panic. Trust collapses under pressure. Survival turns into something ugly. There is a deeper idea running beneath it all. The fear of systems we do not understand. Structures built without empathy. Environments where individuals become expendable pieces in a larger design. It feels less like fiction and more like a metaphor for something real. When it released, it barely made a ripple. Too strange, too minimal, too different from mainstream expectations. But over time, it grew into something else. A cult phenomenon that proved you do not need scale to create impact. Just an idea that refuses to let you breathe. Number 3. Gattaca, 1997. Perfection sounds beautiful until it becomes a requirement, until your worth is measured before you even take your first breath. Gattaca presents a future where genetics define destiny, where those engineered to be flawless rise effortlessly and those born naturally are pushed aside. It is not loud. It does not rely on spectacle. It builds its world through quiet control and silent discrimination. Ethan Hawke plays a man who refuses to accept the role assigned to him. Labeled inferior from birth, he chooses to fight a system designed to keep him in place. Not through strength, not through rebellion, but through persistence. Through the dangerous act of pretending to be someone he is not. The brilliance of this film lies in how restrained it is. The world feels clean, orderly, almost perfect, but beneath that perfection lies something cold, a society that has traded humanity for efficiency, that values probability over potential. Every moment carries weight. A single hair, a drop of blood, a breath can expose everything. The tension comes from knowing how fragile his deception really is, how easily the system can correct what it sees as an error. What makes this film unforgettable is how relevant it feels. Long before genetic engineering became a real conversation, it asked a question that still lingers. What happens when opportunity is no longer equal, and potential is decided before you are even born? Number 2. Dark City, 1998. You wake up with no memory. The city feels familiar yet completely wrong. Night never ends, and something is watching from the shadows, shaping reality itself. Dark City is not just science fiction. It is a psychological maze, disguised as a noir mystery. The film follows a man accused of crimes he cannot remember committing. As he searches for answers, the world around him begins to shift in ways that defy logic. Buildings change, streets rearrange, people become someone else overnight. It is not chaos, it is control. A hidden force manipulating reality like a laboratory experiment. That is where the film becomes something far deeper than its surface story. What makes this film extraordinary is its atmosphere. Every frame feels heavy, oppressive. The city itself feels alive yet hollow. A place designed to look real but missing something essential: humanity. The ideas here are staggering. Identity, memory, free will. If your memories are not truly yours, then who are you? If your reality can be altered without your knowledge, then what does truth even mean? When it released, it was buried. Released just before The Matrix, it never stood a chance. Audiences were not ready for something this abstract, this demanding. But over time, it became clear. This was not a lesser film. It was simply ahead of its moment. And once you see it for what it is, you realize something unsettling. You were never fully in control either. Number 1. The 13th Floor, 1999. What if your entire world was nothing more than a simulation, not a theory, not a possibility, but a fact hidden just beneath the surface waiting to be discovered? The 13th Floor builds its story on that terrifying idea and refuses to let go. A murder investigation leads into a virtual reality system capable of recreating entire worlds. Not just environments, but people with thoughts, memories, and lives that feel completely real. As the mystery unfolds, the boundaries between levels of reality begin to collapse. Characters question their existence, their purpose, their freedom, and the deeper the truth goes, the more disturbing it becomes. What separates this film from others is its restraint. It does not overwhelm you with action, it pulls you in slowly, layer by layer, until the realization hits with quiet force. The world you trust may not be real at all. The tragedy is how it was released, the same year as The Matrix, a cultural phenomenon that dominated the conversation. In comparison, this film was overlooked, dismissed, forgotten. But here is the truth. While others focused on action, this film focused on implication, on consequence, on the existential weight of discovering your reality is constructed. And that idea lingers, long after the screen fades. Because once you consider it, you can never fully trust the world around you again. These films were not forgotten by accident. They were ignored because they demanded attention most audiences were not ready to give. Now that the future they imagined feels closer than ever, it is time to revisit them. Watch closely, because the ideas inside these stories are no longer just fiction anymore.